minutes. Okay. Just waiting for one more person to join. Okay, and hello everybody. My name is Aisha Adil and from London, and Joe and I, my colleague, we are the founders of a small charity in London called Family Based Solutions, and we do lots and lots of different things that Joe will go into a little bit later on. But before he does, I just wanted to tell you guys that at 4:15, hopefully, if the internet allows it, one of our clients will be joining us today to talk about her experience of a solution-focused silence session and what that meant for her and her family. The backstory for that family, which I am permitted to share, is the parent, Tasha is her name, a primary school teacher, married for X amount of years. Her husband was an abuser, so he would beat Tasha and also be quite cruel to the children, restrict them from certain things. So there was a lot of issues going on there. He died a few years ago, so 3 years ago. And subsequently, the family started going to therapy, to the NHS services for support. One of the daughters that will be probably named, I'm just leaving that to Tasha. She's autistic and has been seeing a therapist for many, many years. Mum and the other child really struggled to understand her diagnosis and what that meant for the family and how they are supposed to support her with her autism, because it can be what is described as a typical autistic person. Everything's very, very, very black and white for her. The arguments at home were consistent, hardly any communication whatsoever. One of the daughters had suicidal ideation and would constantly self-harm. So when she joins, that is her backstory. I'm not going to probe her to say anything. I will just ask follow-up questions, i.e., what difference did that make? Was it useful? What else do you think might have been useful? What would you like the therapist in this lovely room to know? So they can go off and support their families, maybe in a different way. But the reason why I started the silent session is because every time I asked a question, an argument would happen. And it was quite deep. So when I asked, what's going well? Nothing, I hate her, I wish she died, was one of their responses. Mum would then start to cry, and she was devastated that I was hearing all of this. When I asked if things were better, what would that look like for you guys? Nothing, I hate her, what's the point? I hate you, I don't even want to be here. You're just going to be like the other therapists that we've had. There's absolutely no point to this, but I'm going to give you 10 minutes. And if I don't like you, I'm going to leave. So I said, that's fine. That's great. You can just go, no problem, but just give me that 10 minutes. Just allow me that 10 minutes. So there was a lot of complex things going on for them, a lot of things, a lot of heartache. And the mum was in conflict whether to grieve for her abusive husband. And here's my abuser. I'm free now to make decisions in the household, but I've also lost my husband. So there was quite a lot of conflict going on there. And so my role with the family in that session was to support them in recreating themselves and what their new family dynamic looks like, whatever that might be, because they are the creators and authors of their new chapter. So the reason why I went into the silent session is there was more questions I was asking, the more arguments were happening. So I just asked them all to be quiet and to trust me. I didn't trust myself because I didn't know what I was doing. I was just making it up as I went along, which is normally what I do anyway. So just trust me. I'm going to ask you really, really, really silly questions and you just answer it in your head. You may go and get a notebook and pen if you wish to, which one of them did. Sorry, someone's just here. And when you've finished answering the question, just nod so I know. And that's how that went. So we will find out more from Tasha when she joins. So now I'm going to leave you with the lovely Joseph Lettieri.
Mm, Joseph, that's very formal.
I know.
So yeah, welcome everyone. It's great to see so many people and some familiar faces. Um, we're Family-Based Solutions. We work predominantly, our initial remit was to work with children who abused their parents. So whether that was physical abuse, verbal abuse, financial abuse. Um, and maybe, I guess, 12 years ago, we thought that was the only issue we would have to deal with, and that, once that was sorted, the family would be fine. What we actually found as we went along and as the service grew was how many other contributing factors there were in the family that were adding stresses. The child, as we know, wasn't born abusive. There were things going on. The biggest factor being adult to adult abuse. So about 67% of our clients, the children were from homes where the adults were in abusive relationships. Um, there was financial hardships for many of the families, maybe had left an abuser, were living in a temporary accommodation. So that was another factor that was common with a lot of the families. Mental health, post-traumatic stress, trauma, for the children and the caregivers, their parents, their carers. Often there was some drug issues. There may have been drug misuse issues in the adults and in some of the young people. There was so many different factors that were going on. It could have been probably 35% of the young people we support have a diagnosis, whether it's ADHD on the autistic spectrum. And often would go into school, get through the day, but those frustrations would come back home because they'd been masking during the day and coping quite well. And then the frustration would come home and it would all get very, very conflictual. So many of the families had these contributing factors. So our service developed to meet the needs of those families. So our main intervention is the family work. So whoever turns up, whether it's both parents, one parent, a child, brother, sister, will turn up to the office. And all of our interventions on a solution-focused foundation, because we believe that is the best way that we're found to get families to move forward that are stuck in cycles of just in these multiple patterns of behavior that we haven't been able to break. So the family will get that support for as long as they find it's useful. And again, all on solution focus. What wouldn't you change about this family? What's going on? And the times when you've got the sort of family that you'd love to have moving forward. So it's all strength based.
Joe, sorry, can I do a check? Can
Yeah.
everybody understand Joe?
Oh, am I going? Is the volume?
Yeah, let me, can I take over, Joe?
Yeah, go on.
Because you are totally underwater, and I thought it was just me, but someone just put in the chat that they're struggling.
God. Okay.
Sorry, guys. Yeah, so there could be various reasons why families are referred to us. So what we do is we work with adult perpetrators to try and support them in recreating their behaviors and what they want. And one thing that we one thing a lot of our clients say is people are listening to us to respond rather than to understand. And that's where I think with the solution and focus approach, it's slightly different because we are listening to pinpoint all those golden nuggets. So by the time they get to us, they've been through social services, through the NHS system, from all these other systems where people have been judgmental. So the work with the perpetrators, our assumption when we are working with adult perpetrators is that they've also been through trauma. They are also victims in their own right. That does not mean we are condoning their behaviors. It just means we are there to support them so they can change it around, whatever that looks like for them. So if things were better, what would be different? Where are the times that you are feeling angry, but you're not being abusive? And, we'll describe abusive if we need to. With the victims of domestic abuse, and that could be male or female victims, just like there's male and female perpetrators. With the male and female victims, we also talk about recreating themselves and what that looks like. So we're doing a lot of work on how the brain works. And because that then helps them understand that this is a result, what they're feeling and the way that they're reacting to situations is a result of things that have happened to them, which then gives them more hope to then start making changes for themselves, because now they are in control. This is what's happened to me, but I know I can undo that. And I can undo that by, and that's where we go into the scalings with the best hopes and all of the above that we know. So there's a lot of, when you are at your best, what does that look like? For some of the families and some of the children, they don't know life without anxiety. Some children have been born into a world of anxiety that could be from either one of the parents. So that's secondary anxiety, secondary depression that they are facing. So it's not just about child-to-parent abuse. We're looking at it holistically to try and stop those children from becoming future perpetrators or victims, because that is mostly the environment that they've been born into. So all these normalized behaviors isn't undone in 6, 7, 8 weeks. It's an ongoing process. And there's a lot of work with other agencies, which, as most of us in the room will know, can be a massive trigger for the families that you are working with. Just by having a social worker can be traumatic in its own sense. Because now you have to, if you have 3 or 4 social workers, you have to explain yourself every time and be judged, even though that you're supposed to be non-judgmental every single time. So that's where we bring everybody together and start influencing their practice by asking the questions, but what are they doing that's working well? And how do we know it's working? There's no point in doing something if you're not asking the question of how do you know it's working? Otherwise, it's just a tick box. They've done this, they've done this, they've done this, they've done this. But that doesn't mean anything to me. Otherwise, we're just going to end up like being all the other statutory services out there, just ticking boxes and say, yep, the attendance to the child's school is now going in every single day. Off you go, done. But they might be going in, but not accessing education. So again, it's trying to avoid those tick boxes. Joe, what else did you want to say? Just say it a little bit and then I will elaborate on it. So unmute.
Right. Close that. Is that, I mean,
No, it's terrible. Just say something for me to pick up on it.
The practical support that we offer families as well, in terms of the
next after that.
One-to-one counselling sessions.
Okay, one-to-one counselling sessions. So the practical support that Joe's referring to is, it's very, very difficult for a client to sit in front of us and have a conversation when they are on the verge of being homeless. And it's very difficult to have a conversation when they're worried about all the other services around them. So what we do is we offer practical support, which means that we pay somebody as a sessional worker who's a bit of a Rottweiler, comes in and does and supports them and takes a burden off them with their financial issues. So it could be that they've been left in a lot of debt by their ex-partner. All of those stresses add to their parenting. And even though as SF practitioners, coaches, therapists, we should not make certain assumptions, I am always assuming that this child is being abusive as a result of something, because children are not born to be abusive, even if they have a diagnosis of some sort. Does that make sense? Is that useful so far? I do that a lot. Is that useful so far? Just so we know we're on the right track. So that's us. That's what we do. We are a very small team with quite a few volunteers. We're very lucky to have a lot of therapists around the world, and a few of them are here that are very supportive of our service and are always kind of there if I need to talk through a case study. But going on to the first solution focused session, which was a silent session, this was during the first lockdown. The first lockdown, we received a referral for a family, mum, dad, and 5 children. And the middle child and the oldest child was self-harming. And they hated their parents and they hated being in the home. And the middle child on the referral form, it stated she wants to be heard. So now I'm on Zoom with a mum and a dad and 5 children all sitting on the floor. How am I going to give each one of them a voice? Almost impossible to be heard equally, because both the kids feel like no one loves them. So I thought, I'm going to do a silent session and let's see where that leads. Again, no idea what I'm doing whatsoever, which, as Gil knows, I just wing it all the time. I run a silent session. What are your best hopes? What is it that you want to see more of, or to see new that you are in control of, something that you can do? I ran through a silent session which lasted for about 20 minutes. They were all nodding as they answered the questions. And I could see the 6-year-old nodding, like, yay, I've answered it. And I could see the teenagers, the older ones, kind of looking like, yeah, done it. I have no idea whether they're answering the questions or not. I just have to trust in the process and trust that they're doing it. No idea. Met with them a month later, and the mum and the 5 children were sitting, no, the mum and three of the children were sitting on a sofa, cuddled up with a blanket. And 2 of the children are on the floor and they're playing with Lego. I said, guys, how have you been? What's been happening since when I saw you? I'm curious to know. I like a bit of gossip. Fill me in. What's been going on? And they said, oh, it's been absolutely fantastic. So what's been fantastic? So all their best hopes were met, but I didn't know what they were. The family are now getting along. The communication with the household is much better. One of the girls who hated going to school is now going to school. So that's great. How did you guys manage to do all of this? Like, take responsibility. If you were me as a therapist sitting here, what do you think? What do you think you'd be thinking right now looking at this family? So I asked them to compliment themselves, putting themselves in a therapist position. And what was interesting was I said, there's one person missing. Where's Dad? So the mum said, my best hope was to get rid of him. So I did. And at that point you think, I don't know whether I'm really proud or really upset that there's been a breakdown in this marriage right now. But the girls loved it. Dad was the instigator. So mum had been thinking about booting him for a long time, and then coaching her and her giving her the space to be very honest with herself, because no one else is there to hear. She was able to then make the decision, get the ball rolling. So 48 hours after that session, she asked him to leave. So that was my experience with the first silent session. So I've been using it quite often from there. But today, our special guest, Tasha. Tasha, are you here? Do you want to unmute? If you're not here, I'm going to cry.
I am here. I'm just trying to unmute. Hello. Can you hear me?
We can hear you loud and clear. Tasha, these horrible people in the room are actually quite nice.
I'm sure they are.
You have people all around the world waiting to hear about your experience of the silent session and anything more you want to add.
Okay.
What I kind of decided to do, which I didn't tell you about, is I'm just going to let you talk and then maybe ask you some follow-up questions. So say what you want to say. But if you say at any point, I'll jump in and support you.
Okay.
So what we want to do is kind of say how, in your opinion, was the silent session useful? Off you go.
Yes. Yeah. So I'm working where Aisha's working with me and my 2 teenage children who are 15 and 17 to try and help us with our family dynamic of post-trauma and everything else. And we are all big personalities and big voices, and my 15-year-old's autistic, and we're all there, and we've all been through a lot of counselling and therapy sort of about a family trauma. So we're all used to talking and talking and talking, but it was our first ever session where we're all together in any form of counselling like that. And when Aisha said, right, we're doing a silent session, that's a bit challenging because we're all used to talking. And there's a lot of arguing in our house, and a lot of people disputing other people's points of view and saying, well, I don't think that, or being offended by what other people say. So the fact that we all had to be silent was a bit of a shocker. My 15-year-old had to have a piece of paper, because actually with their autism and everything, they couldn't just do it in their head. They needed to write theirs down. So sorry, I've got a dog on the floor there. So yeah, so it was really powerful because Aisha, like you were just saying, was some of the things she asked us is, what would you like your life to be? And I think all of three of us had a really difficult, particularly difficult last 6 years, but actually a lifetime of difficulty before then. And don't think people have ever asked us what we'd like it to be, you know, just not just what you can survive or whatever. And not saying it out loud, I think was incredibly powerful, because my eldest daughter could, in their own head, I don't know what they thought, but they could say that without being shot down by the younger one. I, in my mind, could think of things that maybe I never wanted to say out loud. You know, sometimes there might be taboo, or I was in a really abusive, coercive relationship for 20 years. And, you know, you have to be very brave to voice your own desires and hopes when all your hopes and dreams have been broken for so many years. So to be able to just say them in my head without having to say them out loud or my children to hear was really powerful for me. And I think very powerful for my children. So that was the first thing, was kind of like having a little hope that no, you know, or whatever. And for me, you know, I didn't want to upset the kids, but it was about me being happy, all of the aggression, all of the difficulties we're having not being there, for us to be able to go out and do life. And for me, for once in 20 years, to actually go and have a bit of independent happiness and things like that. And then the other bits was like, well, what could you do, Aisha? I said, what could you do? What action could you actually do? So in my head, I was thinking, oh, what could I do? And I'm doing it now. I'm sitting, this is my studio, which I haven't been into for 2 years. And I'm actually going to walk into my studio. Now, I didn't say it out loud or anybody, obviously a silent session, which meant that I wasn't going to upset the children. No one was going to say to me, oh, but you didn't do it, you know. And it took me about a week to walk down the garden to get in the studio. And then it took another 2 weeks to do more than just stand in it and all of that kind of thing. And then one of the most powerful things, I think, was one of the last questions Aisha did was, how would anyone looking in know that you'd made some changes? And I thought that was a really powerful question, because all the time as a parent or whatever, I'm thinking, what can I do? What can I do for other people, or to sort the kids out, or all the things? But what was like, well, if nobody knew and they were just looking at my behaviors, or what we would, you know, would they see what's happened, and would the children notice? And I think that really changed the perspective, because I think none of us, the three of us, didn't know what each other were thinking. But the shift in the dynamic in our household is huge, because one of the big problems has been conflict with me and my 15-year-old. We both trigger each other massively, and my 17-year-old has been very battered by it all. We're all battered by it all. But in the last, you know, since that meeting we had, within a week, the arguing had stopped. Things had changed. I don't know what they decided they were doing in their own heads, but I was like beginning to do my little bits and bobs, and it did feel really revolutionary, you know. And I don't think that was just me making it up. Anyone can see that our house is a lot better. I'm, you know, down in my shed, you know, doing my artwork. The kids are a lot happier. We're not all arguing, and it hasn't solved big problems that we still have, but the shift in our dynamic, and the fact that we could all do it with no one making a comment, no one shouting you down, no one arguing or saying, well, that's not important, or you don't do that anyway, or it's not fair, or you're not allowed to think that. no one could say any of that because no one knew what you were saying in your head. And I think it gave me permission in myself to then make those changes, which I obviously I obviously needed to give myself some permission. But yeah, I found it really powerful. I think talking to my girls, I said, you know, have you noticed anything? And they just went, oh my God, you're so much happier, you know. And yeah, it was just really powerful. And you wouldn't have thought in the house we live in that silence could create so much action. I don't know what else to say.
Write that down. Someone write that down. Silence can. I like that. That's a quote. I will name you in that quote. Tasha, you are absolutely incredible, and that's brilliant. And I think everybody here is so thankful that you are here. Do you mind if I ask if anyone has any questions for you or for
No,
me?
that's fine. That's
Are
fine.
you sure? You can.
Yeah.
You can say no. Go away if you want to.
No,
You
it's
are in
okay.
full control. And does anyone have any comments or go on, Chris? Go for it.
Tasha, that was awesome. Thank you very much for sharing. I think, yeah, brave is the word. I think coming here and talking to us lot, it's quite a brave thing to do. So nice and well done. Thank you very much. Yeah, no, something I was wondering is the questions you were asked, so you answered them in your head in the session. Have, like, since then, do you ever revisit the questions? Do you ever come up with other answers, and have the answers changed over time or anything like that, or what?
Oh, really good question. Well, actually, I was saying to Aisha in our session yesterday that that night I wrote them all down because I thought I really want to remember what I was thinking, because in the chaos and the daily disasters that we have, it's really easy to forget. And I thought, no, I really want to remember because I really want to do it. So I did write them all down, and I have revisited them, you know, when you have a wobbly day or whatever, and think, do I still want those things? And do I want to change them or whatever? And I think because there were things that I just came to the forefront as a gut without, because I didn't have to voice them or you know refine them for a conversation, that I think they were really quite deep things that maybe I'd never voiced. So far they haven't changed, but yeah, I did remember them. I am reflecting on them quite a lot, but at them, you know, it's a lot of teeny tiny steps to get to quite a big change that I'd like to get to.
Oh, brilliant. Thanks very much.
Okay.
Thank you, Chris. Sharon?
Again, thank you, Tasha, for being here. This is amazing. Listening to the story, I can't help thinking if it were me, I would have said, okay, don't answer out loud, but write it down instead. I don't know if I would have had the courage to go with silence. And I'm wondering, it sounds like it was better to just answer silently rather than to have everyone write it down. But I'm wondering if I'm right, Tasha. Do you feel that writing it later instead of at the time was better?
I think with my children, because they, you know, they're 15 and 17 and we're sort of huddled around the laptop in the kitchen, that everyone would have read my writing. And I think so I wrote it privately when I'd gone to bed on my own. And because I think they would have looked over or whatever, or worried about what I was writing down, or if I was writing for a long time, they would be thinking, oh God, what is that? And I think that was the big thing, that you know, none of us want to upset each other, and we really upset each other a lot. Even though we really love each other. And I think not saying it out loud meant that, you know I could think of things that are really important, but I wouldn't want the kids to be upset because they're too young to understand or whatever. And I think for my eldest one, who was permanently shouted down by my 15-year-old, for once they could say what they wanted to say in their head without having to dispute it. So but you've got no evidence for someone else to look at. And I think that was quite important for us. Mo did write theirs down and held it to their chest. That's my youngest. But their handwriting's terrible and I wouldn't dream of looking anyway. But I think if I was writing or my eldest daughter was writing, I think my youngest would have wanted to see or would be worrying about what we were writing down.
Thank you so much.
Mr. Green? Professor Green?
Yes, again, Tasha, thanks again for sharing part of your story with us. It's very helpful. My question is, what was your reaction when Aisha first suggested to you and your children silent session? You said you're a very verbal family,
Yeah.
and here she suggests a silent session. Did you like question her sanity or confidence, or do you wonder what
Well, I think
what
we
the
were
hell
all really
did she know
surprised.
what the hell she was doing?
Well, I mean, I used to be a teacher, primary school teacher for 25 years, but I had to give up because of some of the things going on in our home. And so I was very surprised when she said, right, we're all going, no talking for 20 minutes. I'm just going to do these questions. And we were all really shocked. And it took a lot of self-control for people not to shout out or whatever. And I think initially I did think, well, this is not load of rubbish, but sorry, Aisha, but I did think, well, this is a bit of a cop out. Is this really where we don't say anything? Because surely it's about us understanding each other or whatever. But actually, it was unbelievably within the first question, and we're all there, and then seeing my teenagers respond, nodding or whatever, and like Aisha was saying to me afterwards, because my youngest is autistic, they had longer to work it out and everything. They were always the last person to go, yeah, they thought it all through. So I think we were all surprised.
Oh, we're losing Tasha. Tasha, come back.
But the moment it's sorry, it froze for me there. I don't know if it froze for anyone else.
It's fine, carry on.
That was it. What I was going to say. It just
Can I ask a question, Tasha?
Yeah.
Had I not have deliberately introduced a silent session at the point that I did, do you think the session would have gone as well? Or do you think the outcome would be similar?
I don't know. I don't know what you would have done instead, but I think you could probably see it was our first group time and we'd already, everyone was there, which was pretty amazing. Everyone was joining in, which was great, but you could see the dynamic of being people shouting each other down. And I think it would have just spiraled out, or my youngest would have walked off, or my eldest would have just gone completely silent and just agreed with everything the youngest one said. I think it stopped that sort of spiraling dynamic. And this is one of the biggest things we're working on, is our dynamic as a group, that we could, I think it made it way more powerful, because although we were silent, like you were saying just a bit earlier, Aisha, when I first logged on, I heard you say, I felt heard, which is really funny because we're all in silence. But I had it, and I had it in my head, and no one was going to shout me down or anything or dispute it. And I wondered if my teenagers felt the same, even though we were just hearing ourselves.
One of your children said to me about a week after, that was the loudest session she ever had.
Really?
So it was the loudest session ever. I was like, is that a good thing? Is that a bad thing? But no, it's a good thing. It's a good thing.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of it, when we said goodbye and everything, and I said to the guys, thanks for having a go with me and everything, all of us, they just went, well, God, that was amazing. And everyone went off to their own places. But I think it felt really powerful.
Any other questions or comments, feedback for Tasha, or do you want to ask me anything?
Can you see my question in the chat, Ash?
Oh, no, sorry, I'm not keeping an eye on the chat because I thought that was your job. Can I ask Tasha, not knowing what the family wanted, did it take the pressure off from carrying out your ideas?
Yeah, I think so. And I think the three of us want to try really hard. I think we all want to try really hard, but we're also exhausted. And I think a lot of, we felt like we were failures in lots of ways individually. You know, I'm a failure as a parent, as a partner, as, you know, all of those things. And not having to say it out loud for other people or the others, the kids or whatever, for each of us to say, oh, but you didn't do it. Or, oh, I thought you were going to do that and you haven't done it. It took all of that away, because actually my thing was, the beginning step for mine, like I was saying, was to come onto my studio and kind of, you know, reconnect with a huge part of my life that I've had to put on hold for decades. Was actually incredibly difficult. And I think, you know, if the kids go, why does it take you a week to walk down the garden, or why take you 2 weeks to stay in there for more than 2 minutes, you know, there was nobody's expectation. I could just do it quietly in my own time without anyone else knowing, because other people might not think what I was going to do was a big deal, or it was just, you know, but God, it's walking down the garden. But actually it was an absolutely massive thing about myself, and on all those things that turns up about grief and regret and all the other bits and bobs. And I'm sure it's the same for my guys who find life really difficult a lot of the time, to have the pressure taken off, that you just have a go on your own little ways. And I don't know what they decided they're doing, but and also I think it made us look at ourselves different, because we're like looking for positive things about each other, to see if I've noticed someone doing something differently in a nice way, you know, because hopefully in a nice way. And I think that stopped us looking at each other going, oh, they're doing that thing again, or the negativity that we're endlessly spiraled of triggering each other. So yeah.
Dorothea?
It's just a comment, really. Hi, Natasha. I just
Hi.
want to say, you know, we might be therapists, but we're also people with families and dynamics, and I find you inspirational.
Oh. Well, that's a lovely thing to say.
Absolutely magnificent. Thank you so much for coming to share with us. I find you really inspirational.
Oh, well, I'm just so absolutely grateful for the help, because I don't know if I said or anything like that, but the reason that we were in contact was because my eldest was beginning not to be able to go to college at all. And the college contacted me to say, was it something about college? What could they do? And I said, oh no, I don't know if you understand our home life. And it's our home life which is preventing my eldest from getting out there and living. And so they said, well, we've got these people, would you be interested in help? And I'm just like, any help, because I've been trying really hard, but I'd really run out of hope that things were ever going to get any better. And I think my first session with you, Aisha, I just cried. I just felt I didn't have any hope. But by the end of just talking, because it's all about looking at a solution, not like why, what, and how the past has been, I think I emailed you after Aisha going, I actually felt like, oh, there might be hope, you know, maybe things can change, when I'd just given up, you know. And I think my guys have given up too, you know, and all of us have been battling suicidal thoughts and everything, because it was just, how do you ever get out of all of these endless storms of emotions and trauma and behaviors that you get trapped in? So I think, yeah, gave us all hope and positivity, which I think we'd kind of run out of.
Magnificent.
Thank you, Natasha. Theodora?
Yes, hi. I wanted to echo other people's sentiments. Thank you so much, Tasha, for coming on and sharing with us. I wonder, what did you notice about yourself after your silent session? Like, what did you notice about yourself? What did your kiddos notice about you that you could recognize as, oh, that's different, that's better?
Well, that's really interesting, because, you know, you often go into therapy or counseling over thinking this thing's the problem, or whatever, and then you find out actually it's not. It's something completely different. And I think for me, I've been so focused on the behaviors of my youngest, how it was affecting the rest of us. It was like, how can we manage these behaviors? You know, that was in my mind. And then I came away from that session thinking, well, it's not about them. There's this massive thing I need to do. And so I did go away from it thinking, oh shit, you know, and I don't think I'm big-headed or anything and think everybody else's problems are their problems. I work really hard, you know, and I've worked lots of stuff, but it did make me think, oh my God, I've got something I've really got to work on, which I hadn't expected. But I kind of thought, you know, I was doing quite well. And then you think, oh no, actually there's this really big thing and I hadn't realized. So it maybe you know, we were all a bit quiet afterwards, hopeful but quiet, and it did make me think like, shit, you know, I'm a big aspect and my responsibility in it. Yeah.
Yeah, nice. Thank you.
Professor Green?
Yeah, this question is well, to both of you. It's like two questions. Is Aisha, you said that you suggested a 20-minute silent session, and then you did it. So I'm just wondering then, from the end of that to the end of the session, how did you end the session? And Tasha, what was that like for you in terms of the way the session was ended? What kind of instructions how did you wrap it up? And then any instructions did you give them at the end?
I can't remember, Tasha. What did I do? I think don't let Dorothea hear this because she's going to say, that's wrong. I wanted them to feel grounded. So I was kind of describing where they were before they opened their eyes again. So to feel where they were, what they were doing, the texture of the chair, all of that. And then I asked them to open their eyes and say, right, the silent session is now over. Was that useful? That's one question that I will ask all the time. And I was even asking that during the session. Is this useful so far? Has this been useful so far? So for every 4 or 5 questions, because it was actually, Tasha, 45 minutes. The silent session was 45 minutes because it was 15 minutes of me trying to get you guys to listen to each other, which is then made, I thought, I'm not good at this. I don't know what to do when we're over Zoom. So it was actually just under 45 minutes. So it was about them acknowledging where they were and what they were doing, and then asked them to open their eyes, and then asked them to just kind of sit there and say, was that useful? I don't know how useful that was for Tasha and her children, but that's how I did it at the time from what I remember.
Yeah, I think what was good about that is, you know, like at the end of the film, you know, you get to the end of the film, and unlike the youngsters who then instantly get something else and flick through or whatever, it let it sit with you. So I think to reground ourselves, and then it was, you know, just sit with it for that little bit. So it's still all there. You're not jumping onto the next thing. It's kind of like it's still all there. And then, you know, that was the end of our session, and my guys went off to their own places, and I made myself a cup of tea and then a gin and tonic. And then I think it was really good because you need to let it sit with you and not just start jumping about the next thing.
Yeah, I mean, we did talk about, you know, reflect on this session, take your time, chill, do what you're going to do, but please do reflect on it. I also said you might actually have a bit of a headache now, because I've asked you really silly questions that you're not used to answering. So your brain's been working really hard and searching the filing cabinets in your brain. And some of the filing cabinets are very, very dusty. So you need to blow that dust off and try and dig out those answers. Sorry, can you mute if you're not? And then just kind of think about that and let it process. Just allow it to process in its own natural time, because everyone's processes, you know, aren't the same. And I think that's how we ended it, didn't we? And then it was
Yeah,
like,
I think
bye.
it was. Yeah. Because I think for me, the answers that leapt into my head when you said it weren't necessarily the answers my conscious mind might have realized. So I was, you know, part of me was a bit shocked with what I was thinking, you know. You know, it wasn't mass murder or anything like that, but it was, you know, I was shocked at what came into my head. I didn't realize that's what I really wanted.
Mr. Ward.
Yeah, you're blowing my mind a bit here, Aisha. Right. So I'm used to, if I ask a question and I don't get a reply, I just sit in silence myself. Because I don't know what the next question is going to be until I've heard an answer, usually. You know, sometimes I might rephrase, but I don't want to interrupt someone sitting and working on. So generally, I'll just sit and be quiet myself. So what I'm trying to work out in my brain is, how on earth did you know what the next question was after the first one? Like, what was it based on? Because you did say, you know, you'd heard them making a bit of a noise before you decided we were going to do a silent session. So I guess you had some material there, but otherwise.
No materials. It's all in
So
my head,
what-
just made up. I think despite what some people believe, I think reading the room is really important for me. So when I'm delivering like parent workshops, for instance, I don't actually plan on what I'm going to deliver. I read the room and then I just take it from there. So I think for Tasha and her children, because they did not know what their preferred future looked like, I concentrated a lot on that. But also knowing the current dynamics and how easy it is to argue, I spoke a lot about exceptions and a lot of, let's just say someone comes home and they're having a bad day. How are you going to respond to that in a way that's more useful, rather than you also being upset? And then, because I think one of Tasha's children didn't want to see mum upset. And I knew that. And that would upset them. So it's about how were they going to control themselves, because life can get in the way and challenges are normal. Facing those challenges are normal and dips are normal, but it's how you're going to overcome it. That's most important. So I did put a few problems in there as well. So how would you overcome that? So let's say the siblings are arguing, because they were arguing over a film a week before, weren't they, Tasha? Because so if you don't mind, I'm going to refer to as the autistic daughter, just to make it.
That's fine. Yeah.
If you don't mind, Tasha, the
That's fine.
autistic daughter, the autistic child asked the other child, "What did you think of that film?" And that person responded with, "It was good, but I didn't like this bit." So Tasha's autistic child said, "But how can you like and not like a film at the same time? You either like it or you don't." So she didn't know where to put that information, which filing cabinet that information should go into. It was just hovering, and it was really, really, really bothering them. It was really bothering them. So I was trying to be very, very specific with my questions, so they were clear cut. So I knew that it was easier for them to answer it by putting problems there as well, so they can visualize. We did a lot of visualization. How would you overcome that if that was to present itself? Because it's not all hunky-dory. It's not all about what are your best hopes, where are you on the scale, go off and do it. These are real people facing real challenges. So it's okay to talk about a problem, but it's also okay to talk about how you're going to overcome it. So that was my thought process. Why and how I asked certain questions, I don't know, but I was really reading the room to see how they were responding to the questions. And through reading the room, I knew when to move on. I cannot teach that. I don't know how to teach it, and I don't know how to explain it. It's just something that happened.
Yeah.
But they were very responsive. So I only did 10% of the work. It was them allowing themselves to actually think about the process and think about the questions in such deep thought, whilst grounding themselves at the same time, that made the big difference there. Because they could have just said, "Yeah, I've done it," but I didn't. It was a risk.
So the questions that the things that you chose to ask them about, and the language that you used, was based on what you'd heard them say before.
Yeah.
Not necessarily, like in that moment.
So
Because I knew
that.
because I knew they weren't listening to each other. They had a lot to say, So I'd throw those
But you had
problems
heard
in
it
there.
all.
So if you want to say
yeah.
something and that person's not ready to receive it,
Yeah.
what are you going to do then? That's different to how you would normally respond to that situation.
Yeah.
So I picked up on the 15 minutes that we were together.
Right.
And in my view, and this is an assumption, Tasha, in my view, had I have carried on, I would never have had access to Tasha's kids again, because it was, and Mo actually said to me, "I'm giving you 10 minutes. And if I don't like this, I'm leaving." Do you remember, Tasha? If I don't like this, I'm leaving. I said, "That's great. So will I. If I don't like, I'll leave too." I'm obviously that bad. I will leave. but Mo stayed, which was a massive thing. And that spoke volumes.
Mm.
For her, that was proof to the rest of her family that Mo also wanted something different.
Mm.
Do you want to respond to that, Tasha? Or?
Yeah, and I think because there's three of us, and you know, very curious dynamic, you know, young adults, worn out mum, but also, you know, people neurodivergent, non-neurodivergent, people feel ganged up on, or you know all that kind of thing. That I think seeing that it was beginning to get to be old patterns of behavior of, but I've tried this and it didn't work, and you don't think that, and you hate me, and all sorts of things coming up. It kind of stopped it dead, enabled everyone to feel they were being heard, even though, like, you know, we're all in silence.
Yeah.
But you weren't being shot down, so it felt very powerful.
Do you mind if I ask, Tasha, in that case, did all the questions sound like, oh, hang on, you could tell that Aisha had been listening. So it's, you know, they're all relevant. They're not just like random general questions. They're
Yeah,
things
it was,
that are really
yeah.
relevant to your situation and what you've all been saying and that sort of thing.
Yeah, I think it
Right,
did,
yeah.
because
Yeah.
we had I think we all had, I can't remember now, but I'd had an independent session first. I think that was maybe, I can't remember if you talked to, oh yeah, I can't remember if you talked,
I hadn't met them.
the girls.
Mhm.
But it was about changing behaviors within the established repeated negative behaviors of relationship and everything within the home that we just couldn't break out from. And it was getting to the stage where my 17-year-old's going to leave home, my youngest is on their own in the front room because no one wants to be in there because they're just so difficult to be with. I'm just sitting in the kitchen thinking how I can't leave the house, I can't have people around, you know, we're all trapped in with each other. We all love each other, but we can't bear to be with each other because we upset each other so much. So taking all that away and thinking in your head, it's not your fault, it's not your fault, you've got to do this, was what could you do, and what would be a nice, how would you like it? Like Aisha said to me at the end of our first session was, you know, you've all forgotten how to enjoy to be with each other. And I remember thinking, what, we might enjoy being with each other, you know, we love each other, but all three of us enjoy being together, all three of us. I didn't think that was ever going to be possible. I thought it would end up, you know, that we couldn't be, because, you know, we just got these terrible behaviors. So the questions about what each of us, or individually in our own heads, wanted, how would we do it, those actions, and how would anyone else ever know just by looking at what was going on? You could see that, you know, you were going for a solution, and it took the responsibility into yourself rather than other people. So that to me seemed really relevant. And, you know, I suppose the whole thing about, you know, solution-based therapy is like, how do you get to your solution? But what is your solution? And then what are you going to do? Forget about everyone else. What are you going to do that's going to change it? That's just about yourself, really. So
Tasha's been going to lots of gigs now, haven't you?
yeah, I've even been out.
Nice.
And I didn't get 44 phone calls asking me to come back. So that was absolutely amazing. Yeah, absolutely amazing.
Just very quick, I can't say no to Gil. Just very quickly, Professor Gilgreen, even.
Aisha, I saw in the chat that you put up that you and Joe will be doing a demonstration of the silent session. I mean, are you going to record that and put that up on your YouTube channel?
Well, it's actually going to be where we practice the silent session. So whoever wants to join, I can send you the link, and I demonstrate how I did it. And then we go into breakout rooms and we start practicing silent sessions with case scenarios. So I can record parts of it. So if anyone wants to join that, just send me an email and I will send you the Eventbrite link. It's absolutely free. Because I think it's good for all of us to kind of be in our own thoughts and just think about it ourselves, and I don't think you can deliver it unless someone does it with you first. And I'm trying to think as I'm saying that who actually did that with me, but I don't know if anyone did. So maybe that isn't relevant. I'm not sure. But But yeah, if you just send me an email, then we can practice that.
Great. Thank you.
We have 2 minutes. Any last thoughts for Tasha?
I would suggest a big round of applause for both of you.
Oh, I will clap for Tasha any day. I think she's incredible.
Well, I mean, you know, I can't thank you guys enough. You know, any help is gratefully accepted, and I can't get over. Yeah, I was talking to another parent in a trauma group I go to, and saying how powerful it was. We're all used to talking, but how powerful this was, even though, you know, there wasn't any. Yeah.
And Tasha doesn't know it yet, but she's going to be attending our 2-day solution focused training and learning, so then she can take it back to her groups and deliver it herself.
Oh, well, that would be an interesting one.
That will be interesting.
Okay.
And so there'll be a lot of collaboration, but I want to thank you very much, Tasha, because it was only yesterday that I asked you, and
Yeah.
I thought, would she, wouldn't she, do I dare ask? And she was like, yep, fine. And I'm sending her all these messages to try to work out, am I putting a lot of pressure on Tasha right now? Am I putting a lot of, she's like, no, fine, be there. So you are incredible, and this new version that you have created of yourself is absolutely beautiful. We were talking yesterday about just, you know, taking a bit of time and grounding yourself a little bit. Go, you know, small baby steps lead to bigger outcomes. But you have a beautiful family. Despite everything that's happened, you guys are still together. You've overcome a lot. We all have a lot to learn from all of you. So thank you for teaching us, for being part of today, because honestly, it would not have been the same. And I think everyone here got at least one thing that they can take away today that they can try.
Well, I'm glad if we can help anyone else, because, you know, like I said, we'd given up hope. So it was lovely to feel that, you know, there is hope out there. You know, maybe we can get on with the rest of our lives enjoying each other rather than
I hope so.
much sadder outcome. Yeah.
More gigs, I say, more gigs.
Yeah, well, I've got a few more booked in.
Yeah. Oh, I'm glad. So do email me if you want the link or anything else is in the chat. But we are now off to our next room. I'm going to stay behind and just talk to Tasha for a couple of minutes. But if you do want to stay behind for a couple of minutes, you are more than welcome to.
Thank you so much, Tasha. Thank you, Aisha. Thank you, Joe.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank
Well
you so
done.
much.